Hello and welcome everybody to today's special webinar event, Salesforce and Activating Digital Labor, how we're scaling a unified human and digital workforce. Today we have got the COO of Assemble who will share how they've activated digital labor as a key part of their workforce, turning AI agents into trusted teammates across sales, recruiting, internal operations, and more. This will be a fireside chat style webinar, and then we're going to have a live demo. And this session is absolutely ideal for anyone out there who's curious about digital labor, including C-suite leaders, department heads, operation teams, and anyone seeking to understand how you can activate this digital labor force as a scalable part of your workforce. We've got a ton to cover, and I don't want to waste any time. So let's just go over a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get this show on the road. First and foremost, my name is Mackenzie Puddesy. I just want to give you a personal welcome. I'm your moderator here today from SmartBrief, a future B2B company. I've seen a bunch of highs and hellos in the chat tab already, but if you haven't introduced yourself and you do want to do so, look over onto the right-hand side of your audience console and you'll see the chat tab there. This is a great place to say hi, hello, spread all the cheer and the energy around with your fellow attendees. But this is also a place where you can respond, add comments, see what you're thinking, what you're feeling. If you find anything really interesting, throw it in the chat. We'd love to hear from you there. Now, if you have any technical issues at all during the session, knock on wood, of course, that you don't have any, you can also reach out there and let us know if you're having any troubles. Myself and Deanna, who is our webinar coordinator, will be there and able to help you out during today's session if anything arises. All right, we've got hellos from all over. We've got California, Michigan, Ottawa, Canada, Austin, Portland. We've got India in the house. Welcome, welcome. Dallas, Pleasanton, NorCal. Amazing. This is looking exciting. Welcome, everybody. Now, if you do need any closed captions today, I know we've got it marked here on the slide, but in the bottom right, you can hover over your viewport, throw on closed captions, and that way you can read along if you need to. Those are AI generated, so I can't guarantee they're 100% accurate, but they are pretty darn good, and they're offered in many languages as well in terms of translation. So check that out. Now, if you do have any questions today, please don't put that in the chat tab, but rather in the Q&A tab. I will be picking the brain of our presenter, Greg, and we'll be voicing some of your questions during the session live. So throw those in the Q&A and we'll do our best to answer those either live in the session or on text chat, or we'll follow up in the best way possible. Now, the last little bit is the Docs tab. In the Docs tab, you are going to find a link to the previous webinar that we did with Assemble. So if you love what they're up to, you're super curious and you want to learn more, you can check that out. That happened a few weeks back, so definitely don't want to miss that out. A bunch of great information there as well. And the last little bit of fun, or the little bit of housekeeping, is we do have a $250 Amazon gift card up for grabs today. You do need to be live and present for the duration of the session to win, and I will be announcing that at the end of the webinar. Now, if you do want to know how to qualify and make sure you are qualified, the prize terms and conditions are in the Docs tab as well. And with that, I believe we are ready to rock. So let's get our fantastic speaker out here with us. I'm excited to introduce you all to Greg Simmons. He is the president and COO and founder of Assemble. Greg, if you are ready, let's do this. Da, 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 da. Hello, how you doing, Greg?
Hi, hello, Mackenzie. Good, how are you?
I am great. Excited to have you on today. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure, thank you.
Alrighty. Well, I know I've done a very brief intro here, but I feel like you can probably do a better intro of yourself. Do you want to take it away and set the stage a little bit?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, thanks again for having me. My name is Greg Simmons, and I'm one of our co-founders here at Assemble and our president and COO. And a little bit about kind of my background and how I got here, but I actually started my career in the staffing and recruiting industry. So spent about 9-10 years doing that. And it wasn't until 2015 that I really got my first taste of Salesforce and this ecosystem, and was fortunate to work at a company called Talent Rover. And that's actually where I met my current business partner, Brandon Metcalf, who was the co-founder of that company. But that was a really great journey for me. It was kind of the romantic idea of a startup with hockey stick growth. Kind of whatever's on your business card isn't really what you actually do each day. You just kind of have to lean in and do whatever it takes to get the work done. But we ended up selling that company in late 2017, early 2017. And since then have really been staying in the Salesforce ecosystem. So have done quite a bit of work with Salesforce product development, and now with this current venture with Assemble, doing a lot of work around both products for companies in the staffing recruitment, the recruitment space in general, as well as really broad-based Salesforce consulting. And in terms of what we're talking about today, a pretty big focus on all things Agentforce and digital labor.
Really neat. Well, congrats for selling your previous company, but I'm super excited to talk about what you're working on now. So why this webinar? Why now?
Yeah, I mean, so much of news cycles and what we've all been just inundated with over the last few months, and especially as of late, and certainly ongoing, is AI and LLMs and digital labor, and this is a topic that is certainly here to stay. And so, with all of this new technology that has been introduced, I think so much of this is really rooted in not knowing that the technology is out there, but so many of the conversations that I have on a daily basis are really rooted in just not really understanding maybe where to start or how to apply this technology to your business. I know that, for myself and probably a lot of people on this call, we've all used ChatGPT before, right? Maybe not to the degree that would be used in corporate environments, but at least to maybe, come up with a recipe with the food that you have in your cabinet or your pantry. And so as much as ChatGPT has been used, I read an article recently that talked about how AI is still almost undervalued because of how little it's been adopted by companies, small, medium, and large in the enterprise. And so it's certainly something that has changed the way that I think about how to apply these tools and technology to my business. And I think just a testament to all the folks who are on here today, there's also just a lot of questions on how do you actually bring this stuff to life? And I appreciate that some of the stuff that we're going to talk about is a little dystopian. We're talking about digital labor and digital employees and human employees, and it took me a little while to wrap my head around it, but it sort of feels like we've collectively woken up in the future, and it's just a really exciting time to be able to have these conversations and talk about this stuff.
Yeah, I completely agree. I got to pick your brain a little bit setting up for this, and I had so many of those moments of, oh, this is like really wild. These
Yeah.
are things we think about, we see in films and that, and it's here, it's upon us, we're living it. So I'm super excited to learn more from you today.
Cool.
So let's dive in. Tell me more about Assemble and how you all fit into this future that we're talking about, relating to digital labor.
Yeah, sure. So, Brandon and I, we officially started Assemble almost 3 years ago now, and Assemble is a technology company, and we're really focused on building and delivering Salesforce-based applications that, as I mentioned before, they're primarily designed for staffing businesses, consumer business service industries, with a focus on enabling recruitment-specific business applications, but also around enabling digital labor. In addition to the software products that we bring to market, we also are a full service Salesforce consulting partner. So we also align with Salesforce and their customers to really help Salesforce customers gain value through implementing and optimizing Salesforce to their use cases. And especially as of late, really also looking at scaling their Salesforce environments and activating digital labor, right? So Brandon and I, we started, we have been very fortunate in the last few years, and over that time period, we've kind of had our hand forced a little bit in terms of how we think about these tools. One of our last webinars that I think is referenced in here as well, we talked about we had to hire almost 100 people in 100 days. I think the number was 93 people in 94 days. And so in order for us to do that, we only had 2 recruiters. We had our ATS, obviously, that we use internally, but we also complemented the work with our human employees with digital capabilities, digital agentic capabilities as well. So it has certainly been a wild ride over these last 3 years. And the journey's not quite over yet.
That's really exciting. So what happened on the one day you didn't hire somebody?
Right? I don't know. I don't know if it's happened yet, actually, Mackenzie. I'll let you know when it does. No, we've been growing pretty fast, and it's largely been due to a lot of obligations that we have to fulfill, work from customers. But the other side of that coin is, as we've grown, we've had to address additional challenges or growing pains, as any company would, that's growing at the pace that we are. And so, I think a big part of how we've started to address this growth, and really one of the challenges that we are going to talk about today, and how digital labor applies to it, is along with the growth, we've also started to see a pretty significant uptick in our demand, our inbound demand as well. So this is obviously a hot topic that people are talking about, and we've got a great team of human employees. We've got a great marketing department. We've got an incredible sales team and revenue team. We have a human BDR, right? But one of the big challenges, or maybe more opportunities that we were aiming to solve for, was our human BDR he's only human, right? And so he's only capable of so many calls or meetings or emails in any given day or week. And so much for us about how we really curated our view on digital labor and our approach was, again, almost out of necessity. So as we think about this journey that we've been on, we've been fortunate to be working with this technology for a while. We've been partnering with Salesforce as part of some beta programs to develop the technology from our product suite. But as I mentioned earlier, the fact that in my role as the COO, figuring out how to support the business operations and having tools at my disposal that can provide solutions that don't necessarily include hiring humans is something that has been a really just a fun way to rethink about how we address our operations as a business. And again, it's really helped curate our point of view on digital labor and what that means for us. And excited to share a little bit more of what we've learned about going through this process internally, and sharing some of those little success nuggets on this call today.
Yeah, so I'm really curious about that, and I'm sure everyone else in the audience is curious as well. So one thing you mentioned is, your human BDR is only human. So I don't know if I'm jumping the gun, but I'd be curious how you guys think about what role or what tasks go to your human workforce and what can be divvied out to the digital. I'm being cat bombed over here. I apologize, everyone. And then on top of that, I would just love your overall point of view on digital labor, how you guys are rolling this out, and then, what you've learned along the way. It sounds like you've had quite the experience. And so I'd love to know about that experience and how that shaped your view and how it's evolving.
Yeah, I mean, our experience is really the catalyst that has shaped our point of view on digital labor. I would say that really started probably about a year and a half ago or so. And I just mentioned we got access to the Agentforce technology, right? So the agentic capabilities that Salesforce provides to their customers, and we started to work on developing some product capabilities so that the customers that are using our software applications could leverage those agentic capabilities to improve the role of recruiters and candidate and customer experiences. As I mentioned, also, we had started to use these tools internally, and I think that the testament to our ability to hire 93 people in 94 days, it really would have, I would say, almost argue that it wouldn't have been possible had we not had these tools at our disposal to help support our recruiters in this process of going through 17,000 people who applied to these jobs, and scheduling and coordinating over 800 interviews, and getting interview feedback, and all of the stuff that goes into actually bringing somebody on board to our company was a pretty big task. But independent of what we've done on the product side and how we've used that internally, we also use ChatGPT as a business tool, and we've been using it for a while. And Brandon, our CEO, he's really leaned in a lot into ChatGPT, and it's really become a very valuable tool for our organization. And we've actually trained our own GPTs to provide more intentional knowledge and insight into things like product marketing GPT, or a security and controls GPT, right? And these are tools that we actually use. The biggest gap, though, that we had with ChatGPT was as much insight and knowledge we had on how to train these tools and how to get a greater quality output. ChatGPT doesn't live where we work, right? So at Dreamforce last year, though, there was a big splashy announcement about Agentforce, and included in that big splashy announcement was the inclusion of their SDR agent, and that was something that certainly piqued our interest. And so earlier this year, we started to bring our digital SDR agent to life, and have been working with Salesforce to really bring him out into production and start to see how a true digital employee can work with, arm in arm and hand in hand with our human employees. So our agent's name is Theodore Frank. So a lot of what we've learned about bringing Theodore Frank to life, we've had to learn by doing. The reality of this and where we're at is, as powerful as the technology is, it is still very new. And not only is it new, but it's also changing very quickly. And so a lot of what we learned about training and positioning and managing, we learned through doing, and that's really, again, kind of crafted our point of view on this. And I remember very specifically, I had this epiphany not too long ago that this is it's much more people operations than software delivery, right? So we're not really capturing user stories and building work and testing work and deploying it into production. It's much more rooted in this idea that when we think about Theodore Frank, we think about, well, what are the jobs that Theodore is going to be tasked to do? And what happens before Theodore Frank gets involved? What happens after he gets involved? What systems is he using? How does he fit into our sales process, right? And those are very different conversations that, again, it's much more people operations, right? And being able to reframe our point of view on that has really started to unlock, or rather unblock us to being a little bit more strategic in how we deploy these digital labor assets into other areas of our business as well. So, Theodore Frank, he reports to our VP of Revenue. We monitor his work on a weekly basis. We make updates to how he's trained in the same way that we do a human employee. So you don't really do that when you're just deploying software.
No, not at all. I hope he gets a Christmas bonus as well.
The good thing is he's probably not going to ask for one. He hasn't been trained to do that. So
Good point. Okay, before we go further, why Theodore Frank? What's behind the name?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Naming a company was hard to start off with. So naming Assemble was a fun experience, but naming a digital employee is just a whole different ball of wax. And so Theodore Frank was named because 15 years ago or so, there was a movie that came out called Her, and it was a movie with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, and Joaquin Phoenix's character fell in love with his AI. So it was kind of a cheeky nod because the name of Joaquin Phoenix's character was named Theodore. So hence became Theodore Frank is our digital agent that we all now love and have fallen in love with. So
that's great. I actually love that film. I remember it very clearly and being like, this is wild. And I think about it a lot, as new generative and agentic AI things have rolled out and been really more used over the last kind of year and a half. I keep thinking it's like her. So I think that's a perfect Easter egg that you've created there.
Yeah, the movie was definitely ahead of its time.
Indeed. Well, I know you've got Theodore all loaded up and you want to show us. So let's dive in. Are you willing to give us a behind the scenes look on how Theodore Frank works?
Absolutely. That's why we're here. We got to give the people what they want. All right. So I think as we dive into this a little bit, again, what I really want to show this group and show this audience is a little bit more of our journey and some of the learnings that we had and as I mentioned, bringing Theodore to life. So what you're seeing right now is really the Theodore's DNA, if you will. And so Theodore has these different topics that effectively define the different jobs that Theodore is responsible for. So, Theodore as an SDR agent is tasked with engaging with prospects in our top of funnel process to begin to communicate with them and converse with them about our products and our services with the goal of scheduling a meeting with our human BDR. And so when we think about the role that topics play, these topics define the jobs to be done. So here, for example, sending an outreach email. This is a job that Theodore is responsible for. Theodore is responsible for sending outreach emails to prospects. And when you think about the role that digital labor and AI plays, so much of what goes into bringing these tools to life is about how you instruct them to do their jobs. And we have the ability to do that here by giving a scope of work on what Theodore is tasked to do to go and deliver this work. And then very importantly, there's instructions that we prompt him to take on as well. And the big things about these instructions are here's what you are supposed to do, but also, and I would say equally, maybe more importantly, guardrails and what you're not supposed to do. And really use it's all natural language prompting as well. It's like, do this, always do that, do not do that, don't ever do this, right? And these instructions help ensure that Theodore will be successful in executing that job that he's tasked with. The other piece that was important for us about bringing Theodore to life was, I mentioned ChatGPT earlier. We've been able to get tremendous benefit from ChatGPT because we've trained those different GPTs with information. So our security and controls GPT has all of our internal security control documents, our policies, our procedures, et cetera. And that's how that GPT now knows how to respond to questions that we get. And it's been trained to only reference information in those documents. And when it responds to that question, produce a reference as to where in our documents that information is found. Now, Theodore Frank is not a security or controls agent, right? But what Theodore Frank needs in terms of his ability to be successful is he needs to intimately understand our business. And all of that information is rooted in this data library. And so the data library here is information that we curated with ChatGPT to create documents around our brand strategy and our messaging, our value propositions, information about the products and services that we provide to customers. And one thing that's really cool about this is when we first brought Theodore Frank to life a few months ago, in the time that has since passed since he was born, I guess, like I said, this is like dystopian conversations here. But in the time that has since passed, yeah, hired. I guess he was hired, not born. So in the time that has passed since he was hired, we did a website refresh, right? So on May 1st of this year, we did a website refresh. And you can see that we updated this information right before the refresh so that once the refresh was done, we were able to update Theodore's knowledge about our updated messaging. And this is super valuable because we don't have an exclusive digital labor workforce, but in that same vein that we had to train Theodore was immediately trained on this stuff, as opposed to us having to enable our sales team and schedule meetings and take time from them away from doing their jobs. And so that's one of the huge benefits that we get is the immediate access to data information and the immediate ingestion and knowledge of that data. So hydrating your data library and really providing your agent with really valuable information is a very, very important step of the process. And it's something that we also monitor as we engage with our customers in terms of making sure that agent is equipped with the right tools to do his job. Some other key pieces in here, we have event logging and management, so we can monitor, that he's working and doing what he's supposed to do. But I think one of the cooler parts about this is if the topics are the jobs that Theodore is responsible for, these engagement rules define the when and the who that he's engaging with. And as I mentioned before, and I'm not saying this and trying to speak in cloudy terms here, Theodore Frank is an actual user in Salesforce. He has a user record. He's got an email account. And you can see here that the email account, tfrank@assemble.com, is the email account and the user that is actually sending these emails and responding to customers and prospects. So we have the ability to kind of configure how many times Theodore is going to attempt to engage with the prospect, how many days he's going to take in between engaging with those prospects if he doesn't get a response. And we can also start to control the number of replies that he takes on before he just kind of tells the prospect, hey, look, we'd love to schedule a meeting with you. If now's not the right time, then, please reach back out to us when you're ready. All of these things are completely configurable. And again, we can monitor different information about the success rates and the KPIs that Theodore has, and we can very quickly and easily configure those if needed. We can also then configure the outreach schedule. So for us, Theodore Frank works a 9 to 5. If we wanted him to be working 24/7, 365, we can do that, right? And so as you start to think about deploying different agents, one of the things that we're playing around with right now, for example, is this idea from a conversion rate. If you're sending emails out during normal business hours, you're competing with the other slew of emails that get sent out to people when they're at work, right? So what if we wanted to play around with this and say, hey, on Thursdays, instead of working from 9 to 5, why don't you work from like 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., right? And let's take a look and see what type of engagement we get for trying to catch people maybe when they're not just being bombarded by email. So it's really fun to be able to start to think about how to train that. And you would never be able to tell an SDR, hey, I want you to work from 5 to midnight on Thursdays, right? It's just not going to happen. You could try, I guess. And then last but certainly not least, and this is our production environment, so I've had to kind of back some of our logic out just for confidentiality, but where the when is described up top, the who is described here with these entity assignments. And so for us specifically, when we think about Theodore engaging with leads or contacts, because Theodore lives in our Salesforce environment, which manages all of our marketing and sales activity and customer relationships, we've been able to actually define different criteria so that when that criteria is met for a lead record, we don't have to do anything. Theodore is now smart enough to know that when this criteria is true, he's automatically going to put that lead into his queue, and he's going to begin to go do his job based on those topics, right? So we have this just kind of normalized out for what we did back when we were testing this, so that anytime a lead hits the system where the SDR agent test lead is true, that's how we're going to start to monitor the output that Theodore creates. Same thing with contacts. We can also schedule the same type of assignment criteria for contacts, and that opens up a very different aperture in terms of how we think about engaging with prospects. So where leads are going to be top of funnel, maybe unknown entities to us, contacts are maybe people that we've known or worked with or maybe didn't have an opportunity to win the business from. Theodore Frank can continue to engage with those folks as well. So it's pretty cool to see how all these pieces come together. And as I talk about it, you can see that the way that we talk about this, again, it's very people centric, right? This is not, again, very software centric in the traditional sense of it.
Can I ask, does Theodore close the deals, so to speak, or is there a certain time where you're like, okay, this is where we hand off?
Yeah, that's a good question. Theodore doesn't close deals yet, maybe one day. But what Theodore does do is Theodore shows up on our activity dashboards. So when we review our weekly activity KPIs for the entire team, Theodore's ranked there. He's ahead of a lot of people in the business. So the work that he does do is all captured inside of Salesforce for us. And so the handoff for Theodore specifically is defined back in our topics. So when Theodore is responding to prospects, he has been trained to schedule meetings. So what this is not marketing automation, right? This is not us creating a cadence of email templates that uses merge fields, and then when this happens, send this, or when this does, wait 2 days and do that. Theodore Frank is leveraging, again, the power of Agentforce and the Atlas reasoning engine and LLM capabilities to actually create personalized outreach, and then also understand the response that he gets back from any replies that he gets from prospects to take actions. So like, for example, one of the things you can see here is he has been trained to respond to prospects, but he's also been trained to manage opt-outs as well. So if somebody says, hey, please remove me from this list, Theodore Frank is trained to actually take action, right? And that's really where this starts to make your brain work in different ways. Is this is not something that is static and linear. This agent has the ability to a certain degree to start to reason and understand and take action. And we'll talk a little bit about human-centric roles versus agentic-centric roles. But the reality of our sales process is that it's still it's a high-touch human process. And so Theodore really is trained to, when he does get interest from a prospect, he CCs our human BDR and includes our human BDR's calendar in that email back to the prospect. So our human BDR can see the email chain of the back and forth dialogue. And then the prospect is able to schedule a meeting directly with our human team. And so we are able to track opportunities that we have been able to win that have been sourced through Theodore. So that's kind of cool.
I love that. Does anyone get jealous of Theodore if he's up on the leaderboard like that?
Yeah, we've had some pretty funny conversations in some of our leadership meetings and our sales meetings. He's definitely captured the attention of our sales team, that's for sure.
That's really neat. I mean,
Yeah.
but I could imagine as a human SDR, you'd be like, oh, sweet, I got three leads now on my calendar, and I didn't have to do anything. Like, that's awesome.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, again, we talked a little bit earlier about, our human BDR, he only has so much capacity to do stuff, right? He only has so many hours in the day. And let's say, for example, that, he has a goal of, say, 20 meetings per week. Well, the reality of those 20 meetings is they could be sales or marketing qualified leads. They could also just be people who are like, yeah, I just wanted to talk and see what you guys are doing. Right? Just more looking for some information, but maybe not at that point where they're really looking to get into a formal sales process. So what Theodore unlocks for us is our human BDR. His name's Mitchell. I'll just start calling him his real name since Theodore has a name. But Mitchell is now able to conduct the same amount of meetings each week, but the quality of those meetings starts to change because how those meetings are getting scheduled. They're getting scheduled through a pre-vetting process, if you will, because all of the top of funnel engagement work has been done through Theodore. So I think that's a really important piece. And a lot of people get, one of the big questions is am I going to get fired, right? Is my job going to become obsolete? And I think that the reality is a lot of jobs might change, right? I think you might start to see maybe some companies don't backfill jobs if somebody leaves the company. But our philosophy and point of view on this is that the role of the digital employees should really help to create far greater efficiency of the human employees in your workforce. They should complement the work that is being done, because the reality is so much of the work that has to get done each day still requires a human touch. There's always going to be certain jobs and companies that require a higher EQ or ability to understand sentiment and tone and things of that nature. And while the technology is certainly improving, the ability to handle a customer escalation, for example, and really be able to look your customer in the eye and have a very honest and intentional conversation with them it's very human-centric, high EQ type of engagement, right? So I think for us, so much of where we want to go with this is we want to continue to see the business grow as our customers do. They want to see their businesses grow. But if we can help them grow by not having to hire as many people over time, it's going to create a far greater way of working for all of the employees in the organization.
Really neat.
Yeah. So one of the next things I want to just kind of touch on here is a little bit more about what the brain of Theodore, if you will. So back to our topics here. So this is our outreach topic. So topic is sending outreach emails, the jobs to be done. How Theodore Frank actually does that is by executing one of these different actions here. And these actions are really what creates his ability to go and do the work. So here we can see there's an action where he can draft an initial outreach email. He can then schedule that email to be sent based on the criteria that we had earlier. And if he doesn't get a response, he can then also draft a nudge email, right? And when we talked earlier about a lot of what we learned was how to configure these prompts in a way that enables us. I think I've got to share a different tab here. 1 second. A lot of what we had to do was think a little bit more differently about how to update these prompts to really reflect our business specifically, in a very similar way to how we had to train Theodore with the data and information about our business. We had to come in here and make sure that this prompt here is giving Theodore natural language instructions on how he is going to go and engage with this prospect when sending an outreach email. So there's some cool stuff in here, right? Like, we're giving instructions. You're a digital agent. Who you are is listed here in this section. Here's an instruction section that you need to follow. And here's some information on what you need to do. You need to craft these emails in a way that will elicit a high conversion rate, and the information about your prospect can be seen here. And again, as I mentioned before, is because this is, again, where ChatGPT isn't where we work, Theodore Frank is. Theodore Frank is in Salesforce. And what that means is that when he's engaging with people, their information is in Salesforce. So he's able to know that when he's engaging with a lead, here's their first name, here's their title, the company, the website, the industry, here's where the lead came in from. And all of those different inputs can then impact the output that he's able to then produce. Here's who Theodore Frank is as well. And these prompts can be very specific down to giving him training and coaching on how to craft a catchy email subject line. But really, when we get into the email body, as I mentioned before, Theodore Frank, he reports to our VP of Revenue. And every Tuesday, our VP of Revenue reviews the work that Theodore has done for the prior week. And one of the things that we realized early on, when we first started testing Theodore Frank out, we had a pretty small aperture of people he was engaging with. We had to make sure that he was behaving, if you will. But our VP of Revenue made a comment. He's like, in that initial email that goes out, we're not really doing a good job of showcasing some of our value prop in terms of how our ATS is built on Salesforce. And gosh, it'd be really nice if we could instead have him have a call to action to maybe talk about one of our customer success stories that we have, or a point of view on digital labor, for example. And in order for us to do that, all we had to do was come into this prompt and update the instructions about saying, hey, we're built natively on Salesforce. And for each email that goes out, include a link to a blog post that our CEO Brandon created that talks about how staffing and recruiting firms can boost efficiency with human and digital labor, right? And then again, in the same sense that we can update the data, Theodore Frank just now knows this, and he just does it, right? He does not have to be told more than once. He just is, the data's updated and it's there. And then the other piece that's really cool about this, and I think this is a really big paradigm shift, is if you think about the role of an SDR, SDRs are typically pretty early on in their career, right? These are maybe, in some cases, it might be the first job that these individuals have had out of college, or maybe they've got 1 or 2 years of experience. And for those people at that stage in their career, it's very difficult for them to confidently engage with prospects based on their job title and their industry. They probably don't have much experience engaging with CFOs or VPs of IT or chief executive officers, right? They probably don't know a whole lot about the technology industry or the manufacturing and automotive industry or financial services. But with Theodore now has access to understand what are the things that if you're engaging with somebody in one of these industries, what do people in this industry care about, right? And so we've been able to modify the industries that we serve based on what we have learned from our experience in serving these industries that we know are problems that we help those customers solve. We've been able to add our own industry information. So we work a lot, like I said, in the HR and staffing space. And we know a lot about what makes people in those industries successful. We know what they care about. And why this is so valuable is that, again, this information is now immediately known by Theodore. And because he now knows this information, he's able to communicate at such a higher degree of efficiency and specificity than a human would be able to do in the timeframes that they'd be able to do that. So we've got the industry KPIs, and we also have the title-based KPIs as well. What do CEOs care about? What do CFOs care about? COOs, et cetera. Excuse me. And so by combining the job title and the industry, again, this is not just marketing automation. This is not just an email prompt. The email that goes out is ingesting the information we have about the prospect. He's understanding what industry they're in. He's understanding their job title. He understands our products and our services, and he is crafting through the LLM here. You can see that this prompt is now being executed through GPT-4. There's a bunch of different prompts that you can choose from to test out to see which one works best. But he's able to produce an incredibly specific and personalized email that goes to the prospect to really meet them where they are and do it at a much different way than a human SDR would. So it's things like that have been really great learning opportunities for us to understand how and when we manipulate these things, and then even be able to test those inputs to see how it produces results on the back end. So this is all part of what we would otherwise do for our sales team, right? Our sales team meets weekly. We review their activity. We provide coaching and guidance, and they go and take that coaching and guidance and they try to execute on it. Now, the reality of that, though, is sometimes some of those coaching and trainings, it takes maybe 1, 2, 3 weeks, right? Theodore Frank, you tell him and he goes. So it's pretty fun.
And what this sounds like to me is that, I think with HR or staffing in general, it's hard to find talent. And when talent goes, they often take a lot with them. And so with this, I mean, if Theodore keeps learning and intuiting more and more, and then that can be passed on or expanded upon, it's just like a never ending upwards and onwards sort of swing in terms of quality.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the other big piece again, and I don't mean to be a broken record, but all of the emails that he sends, they're all in Salesforce. Actually, I think we teed one up for this group, right? So
We
we
did.
we slotted you in as one of the leads here. So you can see that, when we did this, Theodore Frank sent an email to you. We see the information that was shared here. You can kind of see what was produced based on that prompt. I can then also see that you replied, and Theodore Frank now has the next email here teed up, and I can come in here and I can see the email, and I can see that he's also ready to send you my booking link so that you can book a meeting with me.
Okay.
Right. And
I was
so
wondering how long he would take to get back to me. I didn't
he's
know.
getting there, I promise. Yeah. I'll update his settings and he'll be right on time next time.
Oh
Um,
no, I mean, I was truly just curious. I was like, I wonder if that's slated for like a 2 hour response or, 1 to 2 days or how that plays out.
Yeah, and so the big benefit, and you bring up a really good point, is because um, when you talk about like employee attrition, you very correctly stated when that employee leaves, they take so much knowledge and information with them where they go, and it's a really hard to replace that. Theodore Frank's not going anywhere, right? Unless we choose to be like, hey, Theodore, thanks, but we're done with you. But the value that we also talk a lot about in terms of the why this webinar, why now, is the value of data and how powerful a role that data plays in providing far greater efficiency and ROI in getting these LLMs and these agents access to information that they need. And so for us, because we spend all of our time in Salesforce and we use Slack, having all of this information and data, it helps provide better insight into our customers, into our prospects. It helps influence the products that we develop, how we support customers, and even so much so as to how we design our business operations, right? And so that is a really, really big and important point to consider, is that Theodore Frank's not going to take this knowledge with him once he stops working. All of the knowledge and information and data that he's created is now yours in your environment that you can now gain additional benefit and insight into. So that's a great point.
Awesome. Do you have
So that's
more to show us under the hood here?
No, that's about all I had teed up for you today. So that's I could certainly talk about this for a long time, but I know we've only got about 15 minutes left.
Well, that's why I ask. And I'm kind of curious, like this is already really impressive. So I'm curious about what is next, and what you guys are cooking up, how you see the future playing out here.
Yeah. So Brandon, our CEO, he's drawn the line in the sand for me this year. So at the end of this year, we've got a goal at Assemble so that 20% of our workforce will be digital, right? That doesn't mean that we're going to have 30, 40 digital agents, but what it means is that when we consider how much we're investing and spending on labor, right, 20% of that spend on our labor should be digital, right? It should be through the work that is being produced by Theodore Frank. And when we think about that, as we go into next year, we're looking at increasing that even further to 35 to 40%. And that's not rooted in reaching 20% because we're reducing headcount. It's really rooted in, again, addressing the demand that we have and being able to increase the efficiency of the teams that we work with. And so much of the people operations focus that we have is rooted in looking at a lot of the tasks that people in the company do every single day that just don't create value, but it's stuff that they have to do for us to run the business, right? And so as we start to think about our digital labor roadmap, it's what we have. We have a digital labor roadmap, And we have agents and agentic tools that are slated to go and be deployed at certain periods between now and the rest of the year. So much of that is rooted in having those people ops type of conversations and really taking a different view of our operations, our departments, how work is done, the systems that the people use within those departments to do their job, and really just understand the why behind their doing those things. What's the motivation behind those tasks? So if we can start to understand that at a much higher degree, it also gives us a much better insight into the people in our business, our employees. And one of our core values is investing in the potential of our people. And I firmly believe that our ability to invest in digital labor directly impacts our ability to invest in the potential of our people, because this is a tool that they can now use to increase and improve their what they come to do when they come to work each day. I don't think anybody wants to come to work and just do these mundane, repetitive administrative tasks. Nobody's going to get excited about that. So we're excited about the direction that's going to take for us, and it's a big target, but I'm pretty confident that we'll get there.
That's impressive, and I think you'll get there as well. I completely agree with you though. Like, nobody gets excited about just, I don't know, copy pasting, hitting send. So if that gets taken off my plate, I'm a very happy person.
There you go.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And so, yeah, interesting. You mentioned the, kind of the 20% spend and then moving the 30 to 45. Quick question. How does that scale up and down? Like, do you have to spend per agent, per send? Like, where are those funds going primarily, if you're able to share that?
Yeah, I mean, Salesforce is pretty public with this in terms of the work that these digital employees do. It's based on really how much work you're having them do. So there's a consumption component to it, right? And so the reality of how we manage our spend is really directly correlated to either one, how much we want to budget for it, or two, how much how much work we want to put on an agent's plate, if you will. Mm-hmm. And so, as I mentioned before, when we first hired Theodore, the aperture of the leads that he was targeting was pretty small. But to scale him up, all we had to do was just increase the aperture. And now there's an increased cost for that, but there's also a much greater increase in ROI that we get. And we've seen real savings in the ROI, because the work that Theodore Frank does offsets the work that would have otherwise required us to hire 3, 4, 5 additional human BDRs, which has resulted in over $500,000 in cost savings for us. So when you think about managing spend, again, we don't forecast this spend as technology spend. When we're doing budgeting and forecasting, we're budgeting our labor spend, and we're looking at what do we need to hire to go get work done. So we forecast that spend for digital labor just as we do for employee and human labor. The way that we forecast is a little bit different, but the output remains the same. So if we need to tighten the belt up a little bit, we can reduce the aperture, we can reduce the jobs that are being done.
Really neat.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I know we don't have a ton of time left, but I heard you released something, or something happened this week, and I was wondering what that is and what you've been working on.
Yeah, so I've talked a lot about working where we are, and so one of the things I'm really excited about is we actually just deployed our first agent inside of Slack. So this is our live Slack environment here as well, folks, but we've got our nifty little insight agent. We're working on his name. We haven't landed on a name yet. If anybody has any thoughts in the chat, by all means, open to options here. But just as we have our SDR agent doing a job of engaging with prospects, our insight agent lives in Slack. And what that means is that our entire company is in Slack. And now our insight agent is in Slack. And our insight agent provides insight into our products and our services, and can answer questions that people have as they're engaging with customers, right? So our insight agent can be added to an opportunity channel. Our insight agent can be DM'd to answer questions about a feature of our ATS that they're maybe trying to answer in the course of engaging with a customer. So we've got our first Slack agent here has been deployed, and we're training him still, right? He's not been released out to the masses yet. And there's probably some people from my company who are on this webinar, and this might be the first time they're seeing this. But
Like, what? How did they know before?
but a couple other agents that we're deploying in Slack, People Ops agent, right? So as we've hired so many people, it's important that we give our employees access and information to understand, how do I log a PTO request, or what's the company holiday policy? And sure, we have, believe it or not, we have Slack channels for all that, but the user experience of having to go find the information, find the document and search for it, it takes a lot of time. But our People Ops agent is going to be trained with all of our People Ops and HR policies and documents, so that if you have a question about the company holiday calendar or how to log PTO, you can just ask the agent, and the agent will provide you with the answer that you need. And then eventually these agents can also do things as well, right? So if I wanted to prompt this agent to send an email to a customer, Slack and Salesforce are natively integrated with each other. So this Insight agent has access to the information we trained them with. He also has access to our Salesforce information. So this is one that I'm super excited about. And I think that a lot of where we're going to be going is, again, continuing to evolve and develop the tools that we have natively in Salesforce. But I mean, we've been using Slack, and I think a lot of people hear of Slack as a DM tool, a communication tool. For us, I mean, it is a workflow platform for us. And I can honestly say that I spend probably 90+% of my time in Slack working, and maybe only about 10% actually in Salesforce, because I don't need to go into Salesforce to get access and insight into what I need to do my job. So excited to, maybe the next one of these will be introducing you guys to, let's see, John Anderson, maybe Minority Report. That's a good one, Travis. Thank you. Skylar, good call there, Aldi. I like it. So maybe that'll be the next one.
There you go. You do hold this contest or something there.
That's right.
All right, I know we've only got maybe about 5-ish minutes left to pick your brain, but let's see what sort of questions came in. So actually, this one is you mentioned that you'd saved $500,000. So I was curious if you could shed any more light about this kind of ROI and how you see that playing out, because I know that's always at the top of mind for people.
Yeah, I mean, again, for us, what we spend on Theodore Frank is categorized, or we think about it as labor spend. And so initially, like we talked about, we had a pretty small aperture for Theodore Frank. But when we talk about the capacity that our human SDR has, the capacity that we now have assigned to Theodore Frank, he's effectively doing the same amount of work in terms of an outbound and engagement that 4 additional SDRs would have had to been hired to go and perform, right? Wow. So there's real cost savings in that. And even beyond that, we didn't talk about it much in this, and if you guys are interested, the webinar we did last month talks a lot more about how we deploy the agentic capabilities to our recruitment standpoint as well. And that has created additional cost savings for us. And so much of the value that we get is, one, rooted in the employee spend. But again, Theodore Frank is driving top of funnel revenue for us. So he's not only saving us money, but he's also helping us make revenue and introduce our services and products to customers as well, which is really a huge benefit for us in a variety of capacities.
Really neat. And so I know you guys have kind of made this top-down decision to employ digital labor. How important is it for companies to take that decision from the top, or how do you think this needs to play out to really be impactful and successful?
That's a great question. One of the things that we learned, and I think it's important for anybody who's embarking on this digital labor transformation, is it is really, really important to have buy-in from the top. As I mentioned, this is a very different way of thinking, and there's going to be a lot of people in the company who might be scared that their job is going to become redundant. That is a very valid fear to have. And so it's very important that you have executive alignment and buy-in as to the value that these tools are going to create for your business, and also ensure that your employees understand the value that it creates for them as well. So maintaining that executive alignment and vision is a very important part. And I know when Brandon and I talk a lot about this, we've got big plans for this company, and a lot of our ability to go execute those plans otherwise would require us to hire a ton of people. Now, make no mistake about it, we're still going to have to hire a lot of people to go and execute on this, but we're now considering the role that digital labor can play in the conversations that he and I have around how we can go and maybe decrease the time to reach those growth targets, or how to be a little bit more cost conscious and mindful about how we're investing into the business to go reach those goals as well. So having that executive alignment and having a plan, like I mentioned, for us internally, we have a digital labor roadmap, and we have certain things that are going to be happening in the business to hire these individuals, just like we have plans to hire human employees based on certain other milestones or markers in the business as well.
Thanks for that. I've got a bit of a cheeky question here in the queue. Are digital employees really employees?
Yeah. Yes and no, right? But I think they're more employees than not, to be completely honest. Like a lot of the stuff that we talked about, right? Like our Theodore Frank is part of our sales process, right? In the same sense that our BDR is part of the sales process, that our marketing team is part of the sales process, that account executives are, and solution engineers, right? So he has a very important role that he plays, and his ability to do his job directly impacts other people's ability to do their jobs, right? And so there's some things that are he's not an employee about, right? He's not participating in our all staff calls and things of that nature, but he is certainly producing work that is being produced by a human employee, right? And so from that standpoint, in the case of Theodore Frank, he's got very much traits of an employee in the traditional definition of it. There's also other areas of this that could be operating more behind the scenes, right? So you can also have agents that do a lot of other jobs in terms of how they take and move data and information from system A to system B. And are those employees? Yeah, maybe. But at the end of the day, it's all about producing a very efficient workflow operation to create efficiencies and a better quality of life for your human employees. That's kind of our point of view on it.
Love that. Good answer. I think I might only have one final question before we hit the hour here.
Sure.
Someone was asking, what are some of the limitations you've come across in onboarding a digital workforce? And I mean, take it as you will, but I think it'd be curious to know both the actual rollout, but then also like the response from your team and how that's played out.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, some of the limits are, well, rather, how about I answer it this way? Like, one of the things that we have plans for Theodore, like as I mentioned, this technology is still very new, and so much of what we learned was not only about how to train Theodore, but how to also reconcile changes in the technology so that Theodore could become more effective at his job. And so, as Salesforce continues to deploy and develop this technology, we have the ability to react to this. And some of the things that we're going to be reacting to in the not too distant future are things like voice capabilities or web agents. And it's not that those things aren't necessarily possible, but where the technology is at is being very thematically rolled out. And for us specifically, there's plenty of AI tools out in the market that can go and provide voice capabilities or web agent capabilities. But for us, we are so intentional in not creating this fragmented digital labor ecosystem internally. That creates maybe more harm than good. We're very intentional about, as I mentioned, we want the work to be done where we're working. And so that's why we're so intentional about when and how we roll these tools out and start to expand the scope of work that they're capable of. So I guess that's kind of how I would see that.
All righty. Well, we are hitting the top of the hour. So any final sign off words you want to leave the audience with, or if people are excited, want to follow up with you, where should they go? What should they do?
Yeah. If anybody wants to check out the prior webinar, I think we've got that shared. There's some similarities of what we talked about today, but very different in terms of hiring. I get to hear Brandon's point of view as well. We talk about a lot of this stuff on LinkedIn, on our website, assemble.com. So more than happy to help connect the dots for anybody on the call that wants to know more. But yeah, no, I appreciate the time, and this is certainly an exciting time for us to be working with this technology. So thanks for the opportunity.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thanks so much, Greg. And hopefully we'll do another webinar soon, and we can learn even more as this progresses and you roll out new things.
Definitely. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Cheers. Well, take good care.
All righty.
Alrighty, everyone. I know we're at the top of the hour, so I'm going to make this quick. Thank you so much to Salesforce and Assemble for making today possible. Thank you, Greg, for letting me pick your brain here. That's been just great. And again, thank you to all of you in the audience because I know time is valuable. So it's been great to have you all here asking questions. We didn't get to all of your questions in the queue, so don't worry. We'll be passing those on and making sure that if you asked any questions, Assemble can follow up and get you the information that you're looking for. Now, a last little bit of housekeeping before we give away that prize is that do check out the Docs tab there. As Greg mentioned, the previous webinar is linked there. So if you want to see that, learn some more, you can definitely check it out. Additionally, from there, we are going to launch a quick survey. This is just like a 30-second 5-star ranking of did you like the content, the platform, how things are. And that is just to give us a sense of what you're liking, what you're not liking, how we can improve and keep these webinars the absolute best they can be. And with that, let's give away this prize, everybody. So again, you do need to be live and present on today's webinar to win and meet all of the prize terms and conditions. But other than that, the $250 Amazon gift card is going out to Oliver Rebollido from California. So congrats, Oliver. We're going to be reaching out to let you know how you can claim the prize after we wrap the session. And you all will get a recording of this session 24 hours after we wrap, which is now. But otherwise, again, big thank you for being here. Looking forward to the next time. And with that, I'm wishing you all an absolutely magical rest of your days. Take care, everybody.